Hi, my name's Ilma and welcome to my channel. I've been posting Christian blogs 13 straight years every day. Today I'd like to share 1 Corinthians 7 verses 8 to 16. Here's the word of God. To the unmarried and the widows I say that it is good for them to remain single, as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. To the married I give this charge, not I, but the Lord. The wife should not separate from her husband. But if she does, she should remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband. And the husband should not divorce his wife. To the rest I say, I, not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever, and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. If any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever, and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but as it is, they are holy. But if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. In such cases, the brother or sister is not enslaved. God has called you to peace. For how do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? 1 Corinthians 7, 8 to 16. Here's my poem. God's view on marriage. God instituted marriage between a man and a woman. No one can separate what God has put together. Even those who are married to an unbeliever, God has instructed them to stay in their marriage vows. The unbelieving spouse is blessed by the believer. They can be used by God to lead them to their salvation. Here's my commentary. Paul guides the Corinthian church regarding God's view on marriage. They must have been asking Paul many questions regarding marriage and staying single. The beginning verses of this chapter acknowledges their queries on marriage and staying single. The culture of the Corinthians is very carnal. Once they became Christians, they would naturally have lots of questions regarding the practices and mindsets they were used to. Paul responds to their question regarding marriage and divorce in this letter. He reminded them how God instituted marriage and that they need to honor the marriage covenant. Reflection. Share insights on how God views marriage between unequally yoked couples. Well, it is stated in the following verses from verse 12 to verse until the end of 16. So when two people are unequally yoked, as this letter says, they need to stay in the marriage if the unbeliever wants to stay with them. So because it shows how God can use the believing spouse to bring salvation to those who are unbelieving. So but if in verse 15 it says, but if the unbelieving spouse wants to separate from the believing spouse, then the believing spouse should let them go, because that means that you are at peace, that you did everything you can. Now, there are probably things or situations that may have different challenges. Like, for example, if the wife is being abused or being or if the husband, the unbelieving husband, is unfaithful and has another partner, then the wife, as it says in verse 10, that you cannot separate what God has put together. So in other words, if you separate, there's still God is just allowing you to pull away so that you can still go back together because you were put together. So in our world today, there are so many cases where the unequally yoked marriage is posing so much issues or problems. In my case, when I became a believer, my husband and when I got married, my husband and I are the same faith. But when after 4 or 5 years of getting married, I learned the true church, and I got into the true church where I'm guided by the Bible. And so it's very hard. It's been 13 years that we are trying our best to still live in peace despite the differences. And so I follow what God says in His Word, that I cannot. I used to want to think to run away from very difficult situations, but I know God has put me here, and He has equipped me to be the one that would show my husband that God is a true God, and that he eventually will come to salvation. Thanks for watching. I hope you check my website at ILMA'S.com for artworks, photographs, and a copy of this blog. Please subscribe to my channel on YouTube so I can make more videos, give you the Word of God. And if you haven't already, check over 4,000 videos I've done over the years. I've been doing this daily. Just type on YouTube or Google search ILMA'S Poem Devotional. Have a wonderful day.